Dr. Nathan Jasinski of Eastern Kentucky University. Dr. J, you want to tell us a little bit how you got started started in your career in music?
Yeah, sure. My dad is a music educator. He taught orchestra for his whole career out in the Seattle, Washington area, and he, we had music in our house, obviously, from the time I can remember. And one of the things I remember was Dad, when we were little, probably 8, 9, 10 years old, he had us all, I think on Sunday nights, lay down on the floor in the living room with the lights off, and it was called music time. And we would listen to Mahler and Prokofiev and Mozart, I remember, and he was just trying to get us familiar with the classical repertoire. And, you know, as a kid, that wasn't our favorite thing to do, to listen to an hour-long symphony on the ground. Oh, man. But I really, looking back, I've got great memories, and that music has been in my head, you know, since I was little. So I really appreciate that about my dad. It was probably a sacrifice at the time for him to try to get us to do that.
Right.
But it was just an example of how that was in our home from when I was a kid.
Oh, I'm extremely jealous of that. I grew up in southern Kentucky, southeast Kentucky, so I can name you about any bluegrass tune about that. But I've always been very envious of people who know repertoire so well for orchestra, and that exposure to it sounds pretty amazing. Yeah. What was his instrument of choice?
Yeah, my dad's a violinist.
Oh.
He also picked up the viola. And he did his major in music education and music history, I think. And but one of the things I love about my dad, and what kind of got me started on my career, was that he always maintained an active performing schedule. He played with at least 1 or 2 symphonies at a time, and in opera orchestras, and he played some gigs, and he was just always playing it. And we always had that going on in our house. And so I started on the violin when I was in 4th grade. And I had piano before that. But when I was in 6th grade, I switched to cello and just wanted to do it myself. And I just fell in love with the cello from that point. And my parents never had to ask me to practice again. And it was just I think it was one of those times where a kid just kind of finds what he wanted to do. And even though that was competing for baseball at that time with my love, cello won out, thankfully. And that was just kind of the start of it. So that's how I got into cello, and then I went all through, middle school and high school playing and youth symphonies and all that. And when I went to college, I majored in it, and it's just kind of been the story ever since.
Where have you gone to college in the past?
Well, I went to an undergrad. So I'm from Seattle, and I started 1 year at University of Puget Sound, which is a liberal arts college in Tacoma, Washington. Really nice school. That's where my cello teacher taught, and so I went there for a year, and then I went on a 2-year mission for my church right after that when I was 19, and I came back and I went and decided to enroll at Brigham Young University in Utah. So a lot of my friends were going there, and they had a really big music program, so I went there and I got my bachelor's there, and I went on to a master's degree at Arizona State University on a graduate scholarship, and then University of Michigan for a doctorate, where I had a graduate assistantship as well.
I was talking to Zara Whittle the other day, and she said that you guys met at BYU. Is that right?
Yeah, she was there too when I was there. Small world,
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, she was one of the great viola players there. She was a great, fantastic player, and I knew her there. And then she graduated. She was a few years ahead of me, so she left a little bit before me. But we had a few years there together.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk instruments. So the instrument you're currently playing, that is your prime instrument, your pick of cello. How many cellos do you own?
I currently have 2, and the cello that I own is a cello I got right before my doctoral degree, and it is an English cello. It's made in England in about 1901, and really nice cello. It got me through doctoral school, getting a job. But then my dad, interesting story, my dad decided to, after the stock market crash in 2007 or 8, he took his money out of there once it got back to where it was, and he bought instruments as an investment. So he bought himself a Italian violin an old Italian violin for a good chunk of money. And the guy also had this cello. It was a French cello by Jean-Baptiste Colin Maison, who was a pretty well-known French maker. And the cello was really nice shape and really nice. And so he bought that too. And so I play on that right now on loan from my dad. And it's made in 1889 in Paris. And it's really, really nice cello with nice big sound. And I like playing on that one. So that's what I currently have. But I still have my English one that I play from time to time, which is also a nice cello as well.
Right. It's So have you ever had to have any work on either one of those cellos by luthier?
Oh, yeah. In fact, when I got to University of Michigan, starting my doctoral degree, I was walking in the parking lot carrying my cello case, and the strap broke.
Oh.
And it fell from my shoulder down on the parking lot. The case just hit really hard. I opened the cello case, and the neck had broken out of the cello. The neck block had broken out of and it had some cracks on the front and on the sides. And it was in the shop for about 5 months. The guy had to take the whole cello apart.
Yeah.
Top and back, he took the whole thing apart, which was kind of cool. I got to see my cello in pieces, which not many people get to see.
Not many people want to see.
No, it was a terrible feeling. But I took it, the really good thing was there's a lot of good luthiers in Ann Arbor, Michigan. There's at least 3 or 4 really good ones.
Yeah.
And this guy just did a great job with it. He took it apart and he fixed a lot of things that were also wrong with it that hadn't been repaired well in the past.
Oh.
And so it was actually a really kind of a good thing in the end that it fell apart.
Right.
That he fixed it up, but it took him months, and it's a good thing I had cello insurance because it costs a lot of money.
Right. So what other things did he have to repair other than replacing the neck block?
Well, he had to glue that back in, but do you know the little button, the piece of the back that comes up?
And covers the back of the neck?
Yeah, that little tiny kind of half circle?
Yeah.
Well, that broke, so he had to actually make a new one of those and try to find wood that matched the back, because that one split.
Oh, so he had to kind of graft it in?
Yeah, so he had to actually make a new piece for it there. He had to fix several cracks that were on the top and the sides. So the side cracks were kind of tough, because that's why he had to take it apart, because he had to get the sides. The cracks on the sides were tough to get. Yeah, and he had to remake that piece of that neck and the back. So he had to take the back off. Right,
because you have to shape that to the back of the instrument, or you'll get like big buzzing and everything. If it's
Yeah, so he did a lot of surgery on that thing, and he also found a crack that was on the bottom of the top, but the bottom, if that makes sense. Yeah. The top of the instrument, but down by the bottom bounce. Right. He actually found a crack that had been repaired quite clumsily by somebody in the past, and so he kind of cleaned that out and refilled it and reset it. So it was a lot of work. It took him a long time, but the cello actually sounded, I think, better after he got done with it.
So you brought up something interesting, having instrument insurance. How does one go about finding the right insurance for an instrument?
There's a few options as far as I know. It's important to get instrument insurance if your instrument is of a value that you couldn't replace it. It's actually not too expensive because they know people take care of them, and it's kind of a low risk because you're not swinging. It's not like you're driving a car around that could get whacked at any time.
Right.
So it's they know. So it costs, I think, several $100s a year. But there's several companies that do it. One is called Clarion, and a lot of people actually just do a rider on their homeowner's insurance and put it on there.
Right.
They just charge a little bit more, but there are companies that specifically do instrument insurance, and I've had to use mine twice in my life, and the total repairs or cost of cellos I've gotten $13,000 from instrument insurance as a return, and so my investment hasn't been that much at all.